Given the NVIDIA and LG situations that have happened, let's look in the opposite direction. Do you have any notable examples / stories of brands having reacted particularly well to your negative feedback or reviews? For instance, making a really obvious point to legitimately act upon your feedback addresses your concerns. Well, yes, we have. So I had to think about that for a second. Are we going to name names on stuff like this, or I guess
they've reacted pretty well? I mean,
positive, I suppose. That's fine, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, I just had to think that whole thing through.
I'd say most companies, again, whenever we talk about this, most companies do react pretty well.
Well, I mean, yeah. The LG video is something that I know people are like, oh, you guys are always creating so much drama. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know what you want us to do when we see this kind of behavior. Just turn a blind eye to it or take some money to ignore it. We pointed out, and yeah, there was the NVIDIA situation. ASRock's quietly blacklisted us as well as Gamers Nexus and probably some other people. And then the LG situation, which was bizarre. Yep. But apart from that, there hasn't really... Is there anything I'm missing?
No, those are only the really bad sort of...
Yeah, there's been little things here and there that we've addressed quickly. But like when we trashed the MSI motherboards, MSI took that really well.
Didn't they fly out an engineer to your house to speak to you and stuff?
They got really involved, and not in the way they were trying to manipulate anything. They weren't having a go at us. They weren't trying to intimidate. They were like, yep. Their messaging was really clear. They straight away said, those results are disappointing. We have verified them in-house. We're very disappointed. We are committed to doing better, and we would like to have a meeting and have a bit of a chat about things. And basically I told them what we expect, why we thought the boards were bad, and what they have to do better. And they went away and they did it. We got the Unify, the Tomahawk. So they revamped a bit of the X570 range. I didn't love that they were still selling those boards that we thought were garbage, even at discounted prices, but they weren't technically broken, I suppose. They just weren't as good as they should have been. Asus sort of messed us around a bit with the Strix thing, claiming it was BIOSes and they were going to fix it, and they dragged their feet on that, and it turned out it was a completely flawed method of... So I think that was the first time we really dealt with them. So they were trying different ways to get out of handling it properly. But since then, we've had a few issues with Asus, and they've been really good at addressing them. So they've definitely improved things there.
I think whenever these questions come up about, how do companies handle negative feedback? I'd say at least half the time, you just don't hear anything. So you publish a negative review and then it's just, that's out in the world. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's done. Companies have obviously taken it. Another thing that's very common is companies will ask you clarifying questions. So, for example, you make a review and you say something in particular that's bad about it, then they'll be like, oh, you only talked about that in your video for a minute or maybe 30 seconds. We want to get some more feedback on that so that we can understand your point or want to make it better or whatever. That's most negative reviews fall in one of those two categories. And so usually most companies do pretty similar stuff. But there are some examples like what you've been talking about with MSI, where I guess they have gone a bit above and beyond to try and fix the products and make them good. A little more info there. I've tested all of these X570 motherboards, and the MSI boards tested very poorly. So sometimes that's due to, we were talking about BIOSes at some point, sometimes that's due to a bad BIOS that's overvolting or doing things wrong. I couldn't see anything wrong with the BIOS, but it could be switching frequency or anything. So I reached out to MSI, I said, look, here are the results, they're really bad. Is there anything you guys can do to solve this? And they sort of said, yeah, those results can't be right initially. We'll look into it for you. And to their credit, they looked at it that night. They got, the team got in and did the testing. The next morning, I got a detailed report. And basically just read was, we're really disappointed that, your results are accurate under those test conditions. Yeah, our boards don't stand up very well. So we don't have anything further for you. And they weren't like, don't publish that, or they just said, it's disappointing, we'll do better next time. So that was a great example, and I think we do see that more often than not. Definitely, yeah. And it's often, even if we don't hear it back from the company at the time, like, again, it may be a situation where they just go silent, but then they'll pop up the following year and they have fixed a lot of the concerns with their product. And they're like, hey, we really want you to check this out because, we saw your review, you criticized these elements to the review, in the review, and now we've fixed them. So we want your feedback. We want you to see whether the product is now, up to your standards. So that's something that happens often as well. I think these NVIDIA and LG situations, again, people, as you're saying, people tend to complain that, we're creating drama or whatever, but the reality is that doesn't happen very often.
And those situations were weird. So, like, NVIDIA wasn't calling out any sort of thing we said in a review. It was more of a general thing they just didn't like. Our editorial direction, I mean, they said as much. They didn't like that we weren't gushing over ray tracing.
Yeah.
And we didn't focus on it heavily. That was their main criticism, as far as I recall.
Yeah, same with LG. You don't see every day popping up in your email like, we want this review done in this way, or you can't do it, or we'll try pay you. Like, this is that is not how most companies handle these things. So, and again, we expose companies that do those things. So, that shows you how
it's happened twice. It's happened. To those degrees, it's happened twice. And the other, unfortunate situation is a company like ASRock, who we've worked with since the company was founded. We called them out for some false advertising, essentially, with their Z490 motherboards once, and that was it. We haven't heard from them since. They cut ties, and that was it.
So companies can be disappointed, angry, annoyed at negative reviews from time to time, but it doesn't usually get to that.
No, that's weird. It's handled very poorly. Can't imagine it'll have a good outcome for them, but
yeah, well,